Hello and welcome. It's so nice to see many of you, and I'm so glad we're doing this in person and not online. I think we're all quite had enough of online events, so I'm glad the strike isn't as strong as it was meant to be at the beginning. So really, yeah, a very warm welcome to all of you to this edition of the Fashion Talks at AUP, to the second talk of this year's series, which is entitled Between Knowledge and Action. So this year's edition is concerned with really the cognitive dissonance between how we live, how we act, and what we know and what we value. And I think this book title, Alec Leach's book title, The World is on Fire but We're Still Buying Shoes, sums this up quite poignantly. So in this series we want to explore this cognitive dissonance from different disciplinary and experiential perspectives, and it's really great to have Paye Ton Influence here tonight. So Amélie Deloche and Carla Monzali, your work I think fits really well into what we're talking about in the series, because with the platform they've created, they aim really to create and support responsible communication among influencers. So the last, few years or even a decade has seen this rise of really this multi-billion-dollar influence economy, at the heart of which is really consumption, is essentially, promoting stuff and selling. I think it's what's been interesting just in the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, we've seen another discourse sort of rise of de-influence or de-influence marketing that you've probably come across already. So the discourse is now, selling less stuff or influencing to sell less. But I think what we need to think about is also how we can sell better or sell goodness. And I just want to sort of bring you this image that was launched in this book, How to Reform Capitalism, that's come out of the School of Life that some of you might be familiar with. Alain de Botton, the philosopher, founded the School of Life and brought out all different kinds of sort of inspiring books looking at the way we live together. And in this book, he asks what the difference between Times Square and Chartres Cathedral might be. Do any of you have an idea? What might the difference between these two sort of iconic places be? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So it could be what are they advertising? What are they selling? And they make this really interesting observation. He says, so the difference between Times Square and Chartres Cathedral isn't to do with selling, but it's to do with ambition, with having different or higher ambitions. And the full quote that he gives, or the full context that he gives to that, is that we remain at the dawn of capitalism. We can imagine a Times Square of the future dedicated to the promotion of cures for loneliness, aids for forgiveness, and those psychological ingredients that will help us to be wise and kind. We don't have to stop selling. We need to learn to engage commercially with our highest needs. And I think this is really the point where you come in. So I think this fits very well, and we're greatly looking forward to learning more about your work. And Sophie will now introduce you.
Yes. Thank you very much for being here. I will briefly introduce you, and then you can start. So Amélie, you have a master's degree in management with a specialization in innovation for the ecological transition. You are a consultant in influence and responsible communication. You're also a member of the Pour un réveil écologique collective for the past 4 years, and you are the co-founder of Paye Ton Influence. And I think it's very interesting for our students to also see what you have done, what you do today, what you have created, because I think all of you, or maybe majority of you, you are looking to, forward to develop projects, and I think your project is really relevant and very interesting. And Carla Monzali, you have a master degree in management with a specialization in consulting and sustainable business model. You're a consultant in ecological transition in a consulting firm. You're also a member of Pour un réveil écologique collective for 3 years, and you are, of course, co-founder of the collective Paye Ton Influence. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation. I will just click on your presentation and I will leave you the floor.
So we're now going to hear about the work, and then there's a Q&A. We also have an aperitif, as this is still sort of kind of the beginning of the new semester and the new year. We thought it'd be a nice way to start together like that, and also give you an opportunity more informally to talk to the speakers, but also amongst each other. Welcome to the students. Those of you who haven't met Jonah and Sarah just there, so special welcome to you. So following the talk, we'll just go over to you.
So thank you for the presentation and the introduction. Good evening, everyone. So it's a pleasure for Amélie and I to be here in front of you for this talk on greenwashing with a focus on the fashion industry. So without further waiting, I will present, we will present ourselves. So as Sophie said, I'm a consultant in CSR, Sustainable Development Strategy. I work in Paris at La Défense. I'm graduated from a French business school, and I'm committed to the ecological transition for 3 years by joining the collective Pour un réveil écologique, where I met Amélie. So let's introduce you.
Yes, as Sophie said, I'm a consultant in responsible communication and influence, of course. And as Carla, I'm committed to the ecological transition for 4 years. I'm sorry, I like my English is not like well. I understand a lot, but it's been a while since I had to speak English to an audience. So if you don't understand something, just let me know, and I will try to.
Do not hesitate. Yes.
Try to better communicate. So what is Paye Ton Influence? It's really difficult, like, to translate Paye Ton Influence because, like, it's not you can't translate by pay your influence. It's not like you have to pay your influence. It's more like an expression in French, and it means like look at your influence, like look at something, look at the downside of something, look at the impact on something, and this is what it means, like, for us. It's like more like look at the influence nowadays, look at the impact of the influence, and so our goal, our mission is like to make the influence marketing sector aware of the environmental issues and the impact of this sector on the environment. So we created the collective 1 year ago, like in December 2021, and so we have like now 21,000 followers on Instagram. We have also a Twitter account, a LinkedIn account, and a YouTube. But we focus on the Instagram account. That's where we work and where we sensitize our audience. So our main goals, is to highlight the role of the influence marketing sector in shaping lifestyle and consumption patterns. We know that the marketing sector and the marketing influence sector is a billion industry. How do you say? It's an industry that is like worth billions of dollars nowadays. $20 billion in 2022. And so influencers are like people that we look at every day. We listen to them. They are like they really influence us in like our consumption patterns and lifestyle. And so it's important for us to like highlight this issue. because like influencers, they are more listened than politics, than everyone actually. So that's why we created Paye Ton Influence. So main goals: highlight the role of the influence marketing sectors on shaping lifestyle and consumption patterns, raise awareness on the environmental impact of the influence marketing sector, because as we know, nowadays the influencers they promote lifestyle that are not suitable with the ecological crisis. And we want also to create a dialogue with the actors of the influence. We really want to talk to the influencers, make them aware of their impact, make them aware that we need them in this ecological transition.
And also, I would like to add something. We also created a lot of tools for influencers to regulate their activity. For example, we created what we call charte éthique, ethical chart or code of conduct, in companies.
So what are our statements? So as I said, our statement is: in a world where social networks dictate mass behavior, the influencer industry has enormous prescriptive power and massively influences the lifestyle and buying behaviors of the audience, which is mainly composed of young adults. And when we are young adults, we are the most influenced people. Okay, so this is sorry. So yeah, this is our statement. And as I said, we really want to focus on how nowadays influencers they shape what we think, how we buy, our politic ideas. The president, and when you have an election, politics use influencers to promote their ideas and etc. So they are really people who have the power in the society nowadays.
So before entering the heart of our talk on greenwashing, we want to deal with a quick focus on the fundamental ecological issues. So do you know what is IPCC? Anyone? No? So IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And we can trust their work for three main reasons. So first of all, the writers of the IPCC report, because they realize reports on climate evolution and climate change. These writers are scientific experts. And they synthesize all the research, all the studies, and all the scientific literature on the net, on books, but they're not products their own right. It's synthesized of all the work present on internet. Also, the IPCC is financed by the United Nations member states, and last but not least, the authors of IPCC are not paid for their work. So it's important to know that, because some people can have some criticism vision on about the IPCC reports. So it's important to know that we can trust the results and the findings of their report. So what are the conclusions of the last IPCC report? So they are not very happy, not very optimistic, but it's important to know that. So, for example, they reveal unprecedented changes, an increase in extreme events, the responsibility of human beings confirmed again, because it was already proved in the previous report, but in the latest it was again proved. And also the biodiversity is threatened all over the world. So now, concerning the climate situation, the climate change, we are facing a tipping point. We have two possibilities. So the first, we can continue, we keep going with the business as usual, and we can't refuse to have the best solutions to face climate change, and we go ahead towards scenarios with more with plus 3 degrees, plus 4 degrees, the upper part of this infographic, or we can choose to act and to change our future. But we need to act now. So what are the impacts of the evolution of the climate and temperature? So we have a little infographic, so it's in French, but we can translate easily. For example, with more 3 degrees, you have 97% more fire forests in Mediterranean area. So it's important to know that each additional tenth of a degree counts. It's not if we reach plus 1.5 degrees, we can go to 2 degrees. No, it's 1.55, 56, and like this. And every ton of CO2 counts. So I talked about the climate context, but overall, the global context is a little bit more horrifying and oxygenic. This is a concept theorized and proposed by international researchers in 2009, and it's called the planet boundaries, which are limits that humanity should not exceed in order to not to compromise the favorable conditions in which it has been able to develop and to be able to live sustainably in a safe ecosystem. So it's to preserve our future in decent conditions. And there are 9 limits, and on line limits, 6 has been already crossed. 2 has not yet been crossed, and for the last one, we do not have data. We cannot quantify the last limits because due to lack of data. So the context is not very optimistic, but when you know, you can act, and it's very important. And we can continue with the heart of the presentation. So focus on the greenwashing. So what is greenwashing? Maybe someone can explain quickly what is greenwashing. No problem. I'm here for that. So greenwashing can be defined as the unjustified and misleading claims for brands that their products are more environmentally friendly than they really are. The greenwashing occurs when there is a gap between the reality of the company and the communication of the company. So the greenwashing can have various ways, like it's described. And here, as you can read, we have testimony of the activist Greta Thunberg, which illustrates very well the situation. And I will let Amélie present the impact of the fashion industry.
Yes, so now we will focus on the impact of the fashion industry. So did you know that fashion industry is the second most polluting industry? Did you know that? Okay, so it's really huge. It's the second most polluting industry after the oil and gas sector. It is responsible for like 8 to 10% of the global emissions, so it's really, really huge. And it's more than the aviation sector and the shipping sector combined. And it's definitely not going in the right direction. So according to a UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, emissions from textile manufacturing alone are projected to skyrocket by 60% by 2030. And the global clothes sale could increase by up to 65% by 2030. So we continue to buy a lot, and we continue to produce a lot of textile, a lot of clothes, despite the fact that this sector is really, has a really huge impact on the environmental, on an environmental level and also a social level that we will show just after. So what are the overall impact of the fashion industry? As you can see, the fashion industry has an impact on all these things. So it's not just impact on climate change because it is responsible for a lot of CO2 emissions, but it has also an impact, for example, on air pollution. Because there are like toxic things that are used to produce the clothes, on human rights, on water pollution. We will see just after that. On for example, also on animal suffering, but also on food insecurity. Why? Because in some region, for example, the water is polluted by the fashion industry, and people they can't produce their food, they can drink the water, so there's like food insecurity because of the fashion industry, and it's more like in third countries, like for example in Africa or in Asia. And so the fashion industry has an impact throughout all the value chain, and it's really important to understand. So for example, just to create a fiber, for example, the cotton, it needs a lot of water, for example, and it's of course it creates a lot of CO2 emissions. The production in the factories also produce a lot of CO2 emissions. Then the use of the cloth pollutes the water with microplastic fibers, and the after, when you throw your clothes, it also creates a lot of pollution. So the three main impacts are greenhouse gas emission, depletion of resources, and soil and water pollution. And most of the fashion's environmental impact comes from the use of raw materials. For example, the cotton industry, it uses 2.5% of the world famine. It's really huge, and as you know, to grow cotton, you need a lot of water. The synthetic materials like polyester, it's made from oil. Also it has a lot of CO2 emission. 342 million barrels of oil are used every day to produce polyester. So it's really huge. And we use 43 million tons of chemical a year in the fashion industry. So let's talk about water. As you know, so we use a lot of water throughout the value chain. For example, to produce just one jean, you need 10,000 liters of water, and it's water that you can drink. It's not it's really water that could be used to people to actually drink water, and it's used just to make one jean. For example, a t-shirt, it's 2,700 liters of water, and which is really a threat for the ocean. For example, it's there is 500,000 tons of microfibers into the ocean each year that come from the way that we wash our clothes, and these microfibers go into the water, and it's equivalent to 50 billion plastic bottles. It's like you throw 50 billion plastic bottles in the ocean just by producing the jeans, washing the jeans in your washing machine, and it's a pollution that is invisible, because the microfiber is so small that you can't really see, and so it's not like a water bottle that you can see in the ocean, and that's why it's really a threat, because fish will eat those microfibers, and when you eat the fish, you will also have those microfiber in your system, and that causes a lot of disease because of that. And of course, there is also a social impact of the fast fashion. As you know, the majority nowadays of the clothes are made by people who are underpaid, who are like working in really bad conditions. Maybe you know the Rana Plaza disaster. So in 2013, there was like a huge building where a lot of workers from the fashion industry were like working, and it collapsed with like more than 2,000 people who died. And so this is really like a huge issue today, especially for the fast fashion industry, that actually use all those people that are underpaid to make a lot of clothes. And there's like a report that actually say that we can't really like in those industry, there's a lot of like even child work, and it's sometimes it can be like difficult to really know if they work or not in this industry. Well, so there's like a lot of social impacts of the fast fashion.
So why does greenwashing exist in fashion industry? So two main reasons we want to describe the phenomenon in the fashion industry. So first of all, as you know, the sustainability becomes more and more trendy through consumers, and for the brands, for the companies, it's a great opportunity to seize a new part of the market, to seize the market share, a new part of the market share, and it's an opportunity to have new consumers with conscious consumption, conscious behavior. So it's a business opportunity, and this is why sometimes companies create new offers, sustainable offers, where sometimes the sustainability is only in the name, and this is the situation when greenwashing occurs. Second reason, so it's not a direct, an explicit reason of why there is a greenwashing in fashion industry, but today with social network, with media, the scandal and the reputation of companies can be easily jeopardized thanks to the work of NGO and journalists. For example, the documentary The True Cost on Netflix had a large echo a few years ago. So there is a transparency and reputation issue, and the companies have to communicate on their commitments in CSR, in social and environmental aspects, but sometimes they do it in the wrong way, and it's the last reason. If you want to communicate communicate on your CSR, do you know what is it? CSR, corporate? Yes, okay. You have to your company has to be ambitious. You want an ambitious communication. Your company has to be ambitious from the business model. For example, if you sell new products, you have to know that it has a lot of impact, more than the second-hand industry, for example, and also your value chain. So it's we can resume like with the idea that in your communication we have. The situation when there is greenwashing is where you have a gap between the reality and the reality of your company, of your business model, and your value chain, and your communication, what you say on communication on social media, for example. So Amélie will present the different types of greenwashing in the fashion industry.
Yes, we'll look at some example of greenwashing. Those example, like there's a lot of example. I choose like some that are like many used nowadays by the companies. So do you know carbon offset or zero carbon? Of course, we see this like everywhere. Like for example, this is Gucci, who says that they are entirely carbon neutral. well, it's a greenwashing. Like it's really a scam. So why? Do you know the scope of a company? Have you heard about that? No. There are like 3 scopes of impacts for a company. Like a company, like to measure its impact on the environment, it can use like a 3 main areas. The first area is just like the fuel they used, for example, like it's like in the core of in their industry. For example, also the business car travel. The electricity purchase is like the second area. Like it's more like for example in the factory they will use electricity purchase, and the scope 3 is like everything else. It's like the consumer that will use your product and generate CO2 emissions by using your product. It's like the oil that you have to use like prior to making the product to actually like for example the
Truck.
Yeah, the truck that will like go to your factory for supplying your material. Well, the scope 3, it's really like the huge part of the impact of a company. That's what you have to understand. And nowadays, when a company says that it's carbon neutral, they only focus on the scope 1 and scope 2, which represents only 20% of the total impact of a company. When the scope 3, it's 80% of the impact of a company. So when Gucci says it's carbon neutral, they only focus on like a minimum impact of their overall impact on the environment. And so why is carbon neutral a myth, and why is carbon offsetting a myth? Nowadays, companies say they're carbon neutral when they're actually just offsetting their emission. They're actually not reducing their emission; they're just offsetting them. And in the main offsetting claim, they always like just plant trees. They say, okay, we have planted I don't know. A lot of trees, and so it has like cancel our emissions because we have planted trees, but it's not possible. Like all the CO2 emissions that is released in the atmosphere can be cancelled. It's there. It will stay in the atmosphere for like 1,000 years, and so that's what you have to understand. Like you can't cancel a CO2 emission. It's there, and so there is a problem of temporality, as I said. The CO2 emission will stay in the atmosphere a lot of time, hundreds of years, whereas like a tree will just like live for maybe 100 years or maybe sometimes just 50 years, and so there is like there is not a good balance between like the trees you will plant and the emission that you will make. So offsetting, it's really like a means for the company to actually not do things that will make them lower the emission activities. We really need companies to like lower the emission without offsetting. And so it's linked to the carbon neutrality. Carbon neutrality, I don't know if you can like someone can like explain what is carbon neutrality? No? Okay, carbon neutrality is like the balance between your carbon emissions and the absorption of those emissions released in the atmosphere. Like for example, when we breathe, we release CO2 emissions, and it's like natural. And on the Earth, there are carbon sinks. Carbon sinks is for example like the forest. They absorb those CO2 emissions. And so there is a balance between like the CO2 we emit and the CO2 that is absorbed by the carbon sinks. But nowadays, like the companies like release so much CO2s that the carbon sinks can't actually absorb all those emissions. So you can have a carbon neutrality for a company. You have to understand really that it's impossible for a company to be carbon neutral. Like it's really impossible, and it's impossible for a product to be carbon neutral. So all those claims from companies that say they are carbon neutral, it's all greenwashing. It's like a major scam actually, and even the European Union said that in the last COP, and even in France there was like a new law that forbids companies to use the word carbon neutral because it's not relevant, like it's not scientifically possible. Another claim from companies, they say they have eco-friendly packaging, but not much else. Like for example, you have like at H&M that it's like an advertisement. It was 1 year ago. They were advertising the fact that they have eco-friendly packaging made with paper. For example, it's on the website of Bershka, and if you look at what they've done in 2020, we have removed 100% of plastic bags for customers. It's nice, but it's not like where their impacts are. It's a first step, but it's peripheral because companies will have not like a goal to really change their business model and where is the impact. And the impact of Bershka, as I said earlier, it's not like their plastic bags. It's like the production of the clothes. So it's greenwashing because like they focus on the minimal impact and not like their business model. Misleading claims and targets, for example, nowadays companies and in the fashion industry, they have to say that they have like goals and trying to lower the impact on the environment. They have to say that to their customers because customers want to buy more sustainable, but it's often like not the reality. Like for example, and you can't really track actually what they said, what they have done, what they didn't do. For example, like Mango said they have a new sustainability strategy until 2030, but we don't really know what they already have done, what they actually will do, and it's like we don't really know what they do, and so they claim a lot of things, but actually they don't really do a lot of things. So there is a gap between what they say and what they do, and it's a way to greenwash, a way to like say, yeah, okay, we've done a lot of things, we do a lot of things, but actually the words are not coherent with the action. A lot of fashion industry brands actually say they have a minimum wage. They pay the people who do the clothes minimum wage, and it's actually a way to greenwash also because like minimum wage, it's not really a wage that is coherent. Minimum wage also sometimes it's not coherent to a living wage. There's like a huge gap between minimum wage and a living wage. So when they say, okay, we pay our workers a minimum wage in Asia, in Africa, it's like a salary that is so low that they just can't really live a good life with the salary. So saying as a brand that you pay your workers a minimum wage, it's not really relevant. A misleading vocabulary, I think nowadays it's like the most greenwashing act from brands. We see everywhere eco-conscious, environmentally friendly, green, sustainable, etc. Those words, like they are used, they don't mean anything at all right now, because they are used by like the fast fashion industry, and it has not a clear quantifiable definition. For example, what is sustainable? We don't really know. What is eco-conscious? We don't really know. Like brands use them without actually explaining why they use them, and that's why we say that's greenwashing. And those claims have no legal meaning. So no companies can be held accountable for their actions if their product is not actually eco-conscious, because there isn't like a quantifiable definitions. So I wanted to talk about like Etam. You know the brand Etam. So Etam, it's a French brand. and actually they've been sued because they have used in a commercial the term eco-friendly swimsuit, and why they have been sued, because actually it wasn't eco-conscious, and their swimsuits was made with material that was like 1% eco-conscious, and the 99% was like materials that pollute a lot. So in France, we have a lot of new law to like counter greenwashing, so that brands don't use it, or start to use it less. One of my favorites greenwashing, the sustainable ranges and collections. So we know H&M have a conscious collection. Well, the conscious collection of H&M, for example, it's like just a collection that is one more collection, and it's not. It hasn't replaced their classic collection. So they want to like appear eco-friendly, because like they try to make better clothes with less impact. But it's actually not their goal is not like to replace their classic collection with this eco-conscious. It's like just a range that is actually a range more than the classic. And so it's often used by a lot of brands. Like they say, okay, we're eco-conscious because we have a conscious collection. We do like free clothes that are eco-conscious, but the rest of them is like have a huge impact. So it's one of greenwashing. It's just like it's a way for brands to appear sustainable when the majority of what they do is not at all.
So, how to avoid mistakes and greenwashing? So, the solution is this transparency and the information. Knowledge is power in this case. So, I will present you two apps to have more information on brands, and we will make a focus on labels and certification. So, first of all, the first app I recommend is Clear Fashion, created by two French engineers. Yes. So the goal of this app is to inform on the practice and impacts on fashion brands. So the methodology it's very important, independent, objective, and fact-based, with fact-based evaluation. The final result is a score, and the score is based on 150 criteria classified in 4 themes: environment, human, health, and animals. And when you have the app, you just have to put the name, and if it's and if the brand is already evaluated, you have the results. But you also can make a request. A request if the brand is not yet evaluated. I did the exercise yesterday with a brand. So yes. The consumers are included in the process, so it's very important to do that. And there is also the Good On You app. So the app is in English. Clear Fashion is in French for the moment, and Good On You is only in English. So it's analyze the app analyzes over 50 independent standards, systems, and assessments to find relevant information about the commitment and efforts and also impact of fashion brands. And the impact, the themes here, so the same, but we do not have the health topic. So it's a little bit different. And we have 5 scores different, so it's not great like the previous one. So you have excellent, good, it's a start, not good enough, and we avoid. So you have the example with Boohoo just there. And 50 there are a lot of criteria evaluated across more than 100 key issues, indicator and standard systems. So it's strong and reliable methodology as the previous one. And about the labels, so we chose labels from the company We Dress Fair, a company which selects eco-conscious products. So it's a mark of, yes, it's reliable for us. So for the materials, you have GOTS, Global Organic Textile Standard, to know if the percentage of your materials of your product is organic or not. You are certified if your product is organic at 95%. Global recycled standard if your product contains recycled materials. Blue sign for to know if the products contains toxic substances. Leather working group for the leather industry. Ecotex is for like a blue sign the absence or not of toxic substances, and organic content standard is like the GOTS certification. But be careful. Little disclaimer about labels. If a company has a label, it's a good thing, but it does not mean that the company has an irreproachable behavior. It can be good on materials, but it can be problematic with social and human rights, for example. So about animal welfare, so you have the certification of PETA. Do you know what is PETA for? Okay, so you have the label if the product does not contain animal material, and responsible wool standard for wool industry. And for the working conditions, you have the work of Fairwear Foundation. It's not a label, it's a foundation which works with a company to improve the value chain and the respect of human rights conditions in value chain, and fair trade certified, proposed, created by Fair Trade US. And this is a label for this one.
Some example of good fashion campaigns. So maybe you know Patagonia, of course. You know this advertisement. So this is a famous advertisement from Patagonia, which actually says, "Don't buy this jacket." Actually, they sold a lot of jackets with this advertisement. So that's why actually it can be seen as a good advertisement, but actually it uses like some tricks to make us actually buy. So I'm a bit my opinion on this advertisement is like, yeah, it's nice because they actually say to their audience, like, buy this jacket only if you need it and don't buy it if you don't need it. But actually, like, when we know that how the human brain works, and when someone says you don't do that, or you can do that, we want to do it. So it's nice, but actually it also can be problematic in some ways. And then another one from a French brand, which actually say, let's buy less, let's produce better. So it's a brand called Loom, and actually they really say to their audience, like, don't buy from us if you don't need to buy from us. And when you buy from Loom, it's really clothes that are like 100% clean on the environmental aspect, on the social aspect. So it's a really nice brand, and it's I think it's interesting, like that we have some brands now who tell us not to buy them. I don't know. I don't think that the fashion industry will one day say this, or maybe they will say this to make us buy more. But Some really clean brands actually sensitize their audience also to buy less, to buy better, and the need also to produce better products.
And so, 2 minutes left, so perfect for the conclusion. We want to finish with few types for consumers, especially to avoid greenwashing in fashion. So it's extracted from a column of the media Green, and it's very interesting. So, first of all, don't let marketing fool you. Always look for evidence, for information. So this is why we presented app to know better the company and to have more transparency. When it duped, look for facts and figures. The reality is in the figures, and if a company does not communicate on with real figures, it smells bad. Look for certifications, but be careful with labels. They are not to be they are not to be all and all. Natural isn't always 100% eco-friendly, and vegan doesn't always equate to cruelty-free. Be careful with the words, the terms used in the communication, and go beyond this vocabulary. Look beyond the overhyped and irrelevant. Of course, the trends and the trends today with social media are responsible of the over consumption. And last but not least, focus on brands with a holistic approach to sustainability. Sustainability is not a department in a company. It's we have to become sustainable and not a part of the company with 2 or 3 offers. And the last advice from Amélie.
So the real solutions, it's actually to better production and better consumption. So really now we need to focus on how we can buy things that will last and that are produced the best way. But there is also a need for less production and less consumption. So we saw in the beginning of the presentation that we continue to buy a lot of clothes. We continue to produce a lot of clothes. It's not relevant to the climate crisis, and we really need less. Now we need less. So it's important to buy better, but also to understand that we also need to buy less and to produce less. So thank you very much. I hope it was interesting for you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you so much for this talk. I'm going to start with a question and then rotate the microphone. I would love to know more about what you do as Paye Ton Influence. You had this little app, the image, on the Instagram, or and you were talking about the kind of toolbox that you create or material that you create for influencers, and I could imagine that all of you are interested in hearing a little bit more about that. And then any other questions?
Ouais, mais je sais pas si c'est visible, peut-être. Est-ce que je peux vous laisser y aller pour voir le compte Instagram?
Alors, est-ce que...
À gauche.
À gauche. Ah, yes. Firefox, maybe.
Je sais pas si un compte Instagram est déjà...
Okay. Je sais pas. Do you have Instagram, Renate, on your computer?
Ah, c'est... Ok.
Okay, great. So you can...
Paye Ton. Ouais, on va peut-être...
Paye Ton Influence?
Oui. Avec Y.
Ah oui, à chaque fois, je me trompe. À chaque fois que j'ai voulu vous écrire un mail, je me suis trompée.
Pas de souci. So, this is our account, and I talked about the charte éthique, so code of conduct for influencer. So, ah, tu l'as enlevé?
Non, mais c'est pas dans un post, c'est dans...
Je crois que...
On n'a pas fait...
Si, il y en avait...
Ah, mais de celle de...
Oui.
De tout
il y avait... Ouais, attends, je regarde s'il y en a.
C'est pareil.
Okay. So, this, for example, 5 tips to make an ethical and ecological partnership. First of all, have an interest for the commitment and the story of the brand, very important. If the story, if the company become in one day sustainable, it's not very, it's not a good sign. So, for example, look after the purpose. In French, we have the raison d'être for the société à mission.
The mission statement?
Yes, mission. Yes, but in English, raison d'être is the purpose. So why the brand exists and what is the mission to concretize this purpose, but also the values and the position in the industry.
So it's actually a tip for influencers.
Yes.
So what they have to know before actually say yes to a partnership. So as Carla said, they really have to focus on the brand. What has done the brand? Is the brand like really engaged in its environmental transition or not? So first of all, focus on the brand. Then focus like on the product that you will advertise. How it is produced? What is the impact of this production? What is the work condition of the workers that made the product? For example, fast fashion. If influencers like they ask this question when they will promote fast fashion, the way the product is made, the work condition, it will be really bad. So as an influencer, we have to know exactly what you are selling to your audience. It's really important. So to know all the products, and I think that's something that we know. We spoke a lot to a lot of influencers, and actually, the majority of the time, they don't know what they are selling. They receive a brief from a brand, they say the brief, they have their money, and the next advertisement. So and for us the base, like the base for an influencer is to know what it is selling to its audience. And actually that's one thing that is really problematic nowadays. It's that influencers they don't really want to know. They just want to, for a lot of them, they just want to make money and not really understand the impact of what they are selling on their audience.
Je voulais montrer le post sur faut-il être irréprochable.
Ouais.
Also another aspect which is very important, because influencers talk to us and say, I'm not perfect, I cannot deal with ecological issues on my social media. And we did a specific post on the subject. So do I have to be perfect to talk about ecological issues? So, sorry. So the answer is no, because everyone can deal with the subject. You just have to be transparent, to be honest with your audience, but it's like the rest of your activity on social network. No one is perfect. Amélie and I, we are not perfect. But you can, you can start. You can start, and you can have progress to have low carbon lifestyle. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, with Paye Ton Influence, we really want to say to influencers that they actually really can be actors in this ecological transition. As I said, there are people that are people listen to influencers. Sometimes the first people that you are gonna see in the morning is an influencer. The last people that you are gonna see when you scroll TikTok just before bed is an influencer. There are people who have the power nowadays, and so they really can sensitize their audience. They really can be actors in the ecological transition if they choose to talk about ecology, if they choose to produce promote a better product, if they choose to promote like lifestyle that are less impactful on the environment. And that's really something that we really want to focus. Like for example, we did a post like a few days ago on the collaboration of Rosalia and Coca-Cola. Rosalia is a huge star. She's like an influencer. She has millions of people that are following her, and she's promoting Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, it is responsible for the biggest plastic pollution. It's the company that has the biggest plastic pollution on Earth. And how can like a store like Rosalia still promote Coca-Cola when we know all the impact? And with promoting Coca-Cola, with like actually say that it's a nice brand. She says to its audience that it's okay like to consume Coca-Cola, and it's a normal company. So it's really nowadays like people like the influencers, the celebrity, they really can't be actors like and to promote a better lifestyle to their audience, and the majority of them are not doing this.
Yes, we also made a focus on the fashion brand Shein, but there is Shein, but there are also brands that are involved in very problematic situation, yes, context. So we have few case studies on our account. For example, we talked about the Black Friday, it's linked to the last to the interesting campaigns. Don't buy these jackets or boycott Black Friday. Wait, tu mets le gueule?
Just to say a lot more about Shein. Shein is the worst. On the fast fashion industry, they really are the worst. It's horrible. They use the Uyghur population. It's really the worst. But what we have to understand is that it's not because Shein is the worst that we have to forget the other brands. Nowadays, like brands like Zara, H&M, Stradivarius, they also are part of the worst. Even though they are not as worse as Shein, it's a problem. And in the influencers industry, like in France, Shein is like there are a lot of influencers in France that don't want to work with Shein because we know the impact of Shein, but they still work with other fast fashion brand. So there's like incoherence in their act, because like it's not because Shein that is the worst, like the other brands are okay.
I do, yeah. Okay. I can talk loudly. Okay, I have a good voice. Yeah? Okay. This maybe goes against what you guys are talking about with greenwashing, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but do you see any silver lining or any positive aspect of that comes with greenwashing? Like, even if you guys talk about good production leads to good consumption, but do you think it can go the other way around, and that greenwashing can inspire good consumption practices or shift the consumer mindset towards sustainability or creating an eco-consciousness that will then push the industry to make changes production-wise?
It's like a really nice point, because there's a lot of people that say like, okay, greenwashing is not good, but maybe it's like a way for companies to actually talk about the environment, their ecological transition, etc. Actually, it has been proven that greenwashing actually make companies like to do less. because they are talking a lot, but actually they don't do anything. And we know that actually the CO2 emissions are still like rising from years to years. The impact of the fashion industry is still rising. It's been like 10 years that the fashion brands have started like to talk about their environmental transition, but figures say that the industry has not changed at all. So greenwashing has not been a way for this industry to actually make changes and make better changes.
The first fight was to bring people more and more sustainable, and today the fight is about greenwashing because we don't know what's true, what is very sustainable, and yes, the words lose their sense, and it's important to have transparency in the information of the products because it misleads the consumers who want to have conscious consumption.
Yeah, you can do.
What inspired you to start this account, and how did you start this account?
So with Carla, we met because we were like engaged in another collective, a collective of students and young workers that we were like working on the integrate the ecological transition in the university in France and also in the companies. And so we've been like active on the ecological transition movement for 4 years. And then I think it was like 1.5 years ago, we started like to think about the influencers, like to work with influencers to talk about what we were doing in our movement, pour un réveil écologique, as it has been said. And we began to think and to reflect about the influencers, about their impact, how we can use them actually to deliver a message. Yeah, to deliver a message. And then like when we started to think and to reflect on the influencers, we actually So yeah, with this reflection, we're beginning this reflection with we can use influencers like to pass our message, and then we like had some kind of déclic, some kind of we had like some kind of awakening, and we thought like but the influencers like nowadays they promote lifestyles and consumption that are really not suitable with the climate crisis, and nobody is saying anything about it. And so it's the point of the creation of Paye Ton Influence is like we really have nowadays to make these influencers awake of their impact and awake of the fact that they can be relevant actors in the ecological transition.
And thanks to their followers, their community, influencers have a huge power, and it means huge responsibilities. And we also noticed this connection with between the reality and what is promoted on the social network. So we worked a lot, and maybe we realized that influencer can have a great power. And for example, going to Coachella is very trendy, but you have to take plane for 5 days, so your carbon footprint literally explodes with the plane. But maybe if you have to go to a French city, a little city in France, it can become more and more trendy. So yes, we talk about lifestyle, and in France, imaginaire way of, for example, behaviors, consumption behavior, and nouveaux imaginaires et récits. Narratives. Yes.
So, based off of your research, if I was like a brand, what would you say is the best method to really promote transparency to my consumers? Because obviously I see you guys are posting a lot of infographics, or do you think using influencers is better? Like, in your opinion, what would you do as a brand to really advocate for your transparency on social media?
It's interesting because, for example, we talked about Patagonia. Patagonia refused to have a partnership with influencers nowadays. Maybe they will change, but today they do not want to collaborate with them because it's associated with scandals, with problematic issues.
Well, actually, Patagonia has chosen not to work with influencers, but it's a brand that is really renowned, so they don't really need it, actually. I think when you're a brand, when you are a small brand, and when you are a big brand, the thing to understand now is that we really need authentic communication. We really need to know the impact of your product. Of course, the brands they want to sell. We're in a capitalistic economy, and growth is still like a thing, and it's like the major goal of the majority of the brand nowadays. But I think it's really important for the consumers to know the impact. And that's what we are trying to do in France. In France, there are like a huge consultation with like the French government, and they are trying to regulate the influence industry. And for us, regulate the influence industry is also like to make influencers to force influencers like to say the impact of everything they are selling. I think it's for a consumer nowadays, like knowing the impact of what you are buying. It's really important, because maybe like you will choose not to buy these things if you know the impact that is behind these things. Like, for example, there are a lot of influencers that are selling and promoting the plane, being a plane travel, for example. And now we want influencers like to say the impact of, you are promoting this plane company, you are promoting this travel, you are like promoting this travel to, for example, New York from Paris. The consumer has to know what is the impact of a travel from New York to Paris in plane. And it's like a transparency that we need nowadays. The transparency is not just about how it is produced, it's about exactly the impact on the environmental aspect, the biodiversity, etc. And we made like a post that is said like, we want influencers also to sensitize their audience not to buy. Like, for example, influencers could have like some, for example, statement that they will have to add when they are selling a product. For example, when you sell a product on Instagram, you have the sponsorized on the top of your story or on the top of your post. And why not have like this statement that will say to your customers, buy this product just if you need it. Like, it's just a way like to sensitize your audience. It's a way like to be aware of that what you are selling to your audience has an impact. And I think it's a way to be transparent about all those impacts and what you are selling.
Other questions? Yes.
I think the more we look into the fashion industry and influencers, we realize that nothing exists or acts in a silo. Everything is connected. So I'm wondering what you want to offer influencers as a value proposition for taking on this kind of work, because I'm thinking, influencers who are not celebrities, for them to amass enough influence to actually be successful, most of them need to quit their full-time jobs and transition to full-time influence. So I can imagine many of them would be reluctant to work against brands. I mean, even smaller brands in the supply chain don't want to speak out against, their larger clients. So one is obvious to me, maybe trust. I know the influence industry is fascinating because many crashed and burned because their audiences did not trust them. So aside from audiences trusting the influencer, what else do you think we can use to convince influencers that this is in their best interest if they are afraid of their ability to continue building a livelihood from their careers?
Yes, it's for the cause, the fight for our future, for our planet. So yes, it's easy to say, but more difficult to apply to change your life. But yes, it's a reflection that we have with Amélie for Paye Ton Influence to propose other business model, new way of generate value, create money. Sometimes when you have to refuse a partnership with Shein, yes, you refuse a lot of money. So you have to deal with it, and I guess it can be a sacrifice from some influencers who can have a high comfort in their life. Yes. It's also a fight for value. A value fight. The value of money, maybe.
As Carla said, there is a huge problem. It's like the business model of influencers. It's promoting brands, promoting consumption, promoting overconsumption. And what can we say to those influencers that their business model rely on the brands that are working with? What we can say to them, it's okay, you will not stop being an influencer, but maybe you can just promote better brands. Maybe I don't know, maybe nowadays 60% of the brands you are promoting are not cool and not sustainable. But maybe last year, it's going to be just 20% of the brands you are promoting, and 80% of the brands you are promoting will be more sustainable. There is a lot of, for example, this kind of things. I think one thing that we want influencers to understand is that what they say, what they sell, has a huge impact on their audience. And I think that's something that a lot of influencers don't understand. The influencers is now like a job. It's a work. It's a job that has been professionalized in the last years. And I think there's a lot of influencers, they are not connected to reality because they are doing their stories, they are doing their posts, but they don't really see their audience. They don't really see that what they are saying will make. They don't see their audience going to the shop to buy. They don't see their audience going to this going on the website of the brand to buy the things. And I think they really need now to be connected to that, to be connected to their impact. And when you know the impact you have on people, when you know that you make people think that they will be happier if they buy these things, maybe it's going to be really logic that you will stop promoting all those things, and that we will maybe promoting better things. And as Carla said, it's like a fight of value. What are your values? What do you want to promote? Where do you want to make money, or do you want your audience to be, I don't know, more intelligent, or have a better lifestyle? And I think the influence sector is so huge now. Brands have so many money to pay influencers, and the money comes from the big brands. And I think it's really difficult nowadays for the majority of influencers to refuse this money. You can pay people with money. You can pay their values with money. When you have I don't know, Shein that has Carla said that comes to you and say, okay, I give you $60,000 to promote my brand. Well, as a normal human being, it's really, really difficult to refuse that. So you have to have a really huge values and to be really clear with what you want as an influencer to refuse that. And I think a lot of people, a lot of new influencers, it's like a new life. They just want like make money. Of course, we want like we all want like a better life. And I think now we need influencers to really understand the impact and understand the values and just be aware of what they are doing. I think a lot of them are not really aware of what they are doing.
And another thing, if influencers do not want to change, climate change will decide for them, because climate change and also this planetary boundaries will affect all our economy, our jobs, our lifestyle, and of course, influencers' job. So it's another point of view, but it's important to keep in mind. And the first, when we talk with influencer, the first fact we notice is that they do not have the knowledge and they did not realize the reality of the problem and the emergency of the situation. And yes, sometimes it's difficult to make understand people for about the situation. And for example, we had our ecological awakening 5 years ago, but for other person, it can be more long, and it's sometimes difficult to refuse to say yes to decline some opportunities and to jeopardize your comfort. But climate change will, yes, I said. You can be in an active way, in action, or you can be, yes, in passive behavior. And I don't know what is the best, but I think the first one is better.
I'd also be interested in hearing just a little bit about how you go about doing your work. Do you approach influencers? Are you now being approached? Do you critically engage on their platforms? Just understanding a little bit of what you do, how you go about it.
So actually in France, we don't have a lot of followers. We only have 21k followers, but we are actually now known in the influencer sector in France. So there is a lot of like a brand of influencers that come to us to talk or to have, if they have questions of how they can actually have a better influence and integrate the ecological impact in their influence. So it's really now, it has become really easy to talk to this sector now. But there is people that are reluctant. There is influencers that actually hate us, not really hate, but that they think that we are just, criticizing them. That's really not what we are doing. We really want them just to understand the impact. And I think from certain influencers who are really far from the ecological transition, far from all those things, they just think that we are not relevant. So it depends, but actually we have like a really easy talk with a lot of influencers now.
Sometimes people think we are jealous, but no, it's more complicated.
Maybe we can transition to the more social part of the evening, and you can more informally.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.